Hey everybody, it's Eric from EPAutos.com, your libertarian car guy. Thought I'd speculate this morning on the coming year, 2026, and whether it might prove to be the last or nearly the last year for certain car brands. And I'm going to make a prediction here, and it's one that I regret having to make because the brands I'm going to mention are brands that I like personally, and I don't like to see any brand of car go out of business. I mean, unless they truly deserve to, because it means that a lot of people are going to be out of work, and then on and on down the supply chain, as they say, because it's not just the manufacturer, it's not just the dealer, it's also the parts suppliers, the networks, all the people who work in the peripheral industries that wind up being unemployed when that sort of a thing happens. So to circle back to which companies that I think don't have a very promising future, I'm going to start with one that's obvious, Chrysler. Chrysler at this point is down to just one model, and that is the Pacifica minivan. And I just don't see how Chrysler can survive selling one model. Now, it's true that there aren't many independent Chrysler stores left any longer. In other words, most of the Chrysler quote-unquote dealers are part of a larger Dodge, Ram, and Jeep network. But bottom line, it's difficult to maintain a brand on the strength of just one model. And again, I've got nothing against the Pacifica minivan, but it's very expensive, like all minivans have become. It's no longer realistically a family vehicle. It's essentially a vehicle for older people who like the lower step-in height, like the fact that it's handicap accessible, and so on and so forth. Minivans were once popular in part because they were so affordable. They weren't fancy, they weren't powerful, they were designed to haul kids and be cheap. They're not that anymore. So, unless Chrysler can add new models to its repertoire, I don't see much of a future for Chrysler beyond 2026. I know that they may try to introduce some electric vehicle. They probably had planned to do that. I think that's going to be a disaster. I think if they're smart, and I think that they're not dumb, let's put it that way, they're going to dial back the plans they may have had to do that because it's a non-starter. Anybody who follows the EV thing right now knows that things are not looking too good for EVs. Now that brings me to the second sick man on the list, which unfortunately is Dodge. Dodge dug its own grave, in my opinion, by getting rid of the V8 Charger and the Challenger in 2023, and trying to replace both those models with one model, the two-door Charger, that was at the time of its launch only sold as an electric vehicle, and that just didn't go over very well. For reasons that are just so obvious, it astonishes me that they thought they were going to be able to do it. And it wasn't just the fact that it was an EV, and people who like the Charger and the Challenger pretty much have zero interest in an EV because it's an entirely different type of vehicle. Not getting into the pros and cons of EVs, I'm just stating a kind of a marketing reality. Maybe Dodge thought that they're going to appeal to people who like Teslas, but I think that's also a non-starter because people who like Teslas don't want a Dodge. It's just a different kind of vehicle in terms of its look, in terms of its heritage, its DNA, all those terms that you hear bandied about in the car business. But the even more devastating fact, I think, was the problem, was that when they brought out the electric Charger, the thing cost about $20,000 more to start than the previously available V6 version, the base Charger, that you could pick up for, I think it was about $32,000 or so. And they priced this new electric Charger $20,000 higher. I mean, as if they thought that the kind of people who might want to buy just the regular Charger wouldn't be able to spring another $20,000. So just absolutely terrible decision on the part of the powers that be over at Dodge. Well, they're trying to fix it. They are hurrying into production a version of the Charger that will have their Hurricane inline six-cylinder engine. And that's all well and good, but it really doesn't address the affordability problem to begin with. Because once again, there's no low-cost version of the Charger. We're still talking about $50,000 plus to get into one of these things. And and that's just not going to work. The other thing is that as much as the 306 that they're using in the Charger is a fine engine, I have nothing but good things to say about it. The bottom line is it's not a V8 engine, and I don't care how powerful it is, and I don't care how quick the Charger is with that engine. I think that fundamentally something is missing. And there are other things that are missing too, and there's also other things that are there. One thing that's missing is a manual transmission. No option for the manual transmission, which is a bad move. The other bad move is that it's all-wheel drive. Now, I understand that it's supposedly going to have some sort of a decoupling mechanism that will allow you to drift in it or to do burnouts in it. It's not the same thing. And it also adds weight and it adds cost. And that's the bottom line. And as I think everybody understands right now, we're living in a time of great economic difficulty for most people. So, most people are not in a position to afford a $50,000 coupe, a two-door coupe, a performance coupe. You know, the people who like those kinds of cars are generally, you know, regular Joes like me, blue-collar people, middle-class people, working people, those kinds of people. We don't have the kind of money to buy a vehicle like that. So once again, it's sort of a vehicle for affluent, aging boomers. And affluent, aging boomers are in the decline right now. You know, they're getting too old for cars like that. It's not even about their affordability. Their knees are bad. Behold, the people in that category. And it's difficult for them to get in and out of these, you know, low-slung, sporty two-door coupes that just aren't very practical. On top of that, because, you know, two doors, even if the back seat's roomy, it's difficult to get in and out, and, you know, they have relatively small trunks, and blah, 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 blah. So, those two are high on my list of car companies that might not be around for much longer. And there's another one which may surprise you, and it's Volkswagen. Volkswagen's not doing very well either because of the great malinvestment that it has made in this whole electric vehicle boondoggle. And not just in its own electric vehicle boondoggles. It has invested heavily into Scout, you know, International Scout, meaning that they bought the name and the rights to use the Scout name as a, you know, as a marketing tool to sell as a subsidiary another electric vehicle that people don't want. Another, well, not enough people want. Another $60,000 plus, essentially Rivian knockoff. And Rivian is having trouble selling their things. So, you know, I don't know how Volkswagen imagines that it is going to do well selling essentially the same thing under a different label. And meanwhile, the rest of its lineup has kind of just drifted away. It's gotten expensive, it's gotten big. They don't have appealing, affordable mass-market cars anymore, like the TDI-powered Jetta and Golf that you used to be able to get not that long ago. You know, my memory isn't that bad. I can remember when you could get a brand new Jetta TDI for about $22,000, and that was around 2015, 2016. And I get that it was a decade ago, and yeah, I understand inflation. Nonetheless, the point is that people's incomes have not risen to compensate for inflation, and most people just aren't in a position, again, to spend $40,000 and $50,000 on a new car. It's really bad. Anyway, those are my top 3 picks for brands that are in trouble right now, with Chrysler at the top, Dodge in the number 2 slot, and Volkswagen right behind. I may have more about this over at epautos.com. I hope you'll swing by and take a look. Thanks as always for listening, and we will have more for you again soon.